Visiting Fort Bragg, a small fishing community tucked along Northern California's rugged coastline, I was immediately greeted by familiar scents. Redwood forests, fresh fish coming in from a long day at sea, and the crisp, salty breeze. But threading through it was something unplaceable that followed me through the harbor. I later found out it was the smell of rotting sea urchin. I observed rows of bins of these vibrant purple urchins scattered across Noyo Harbor. Hundreds of pounds of these purple urchins are removed weekly by urchin divers for kelp restoration. Kelp forests, like all ecosystems, are structured by a system of checks and balances through predator-prey interactions. This particular ecosystem focuses on bull kelp, the primary canopy-forming species along the north coast of California. One of the main grazers of bull kelp, among other species, are these spiny purple urchins, and their top predator being the sunflower sea star, drawn by me in orange. From 2014 to 2016, ocean surface temperatures increased, known as the warm blob. During this time, California lost over 90% of its bull kelp species. Simultaneously, sea star wasting disease spread, rapidly dissolving these marine predators. The combination of these events created a spiny predicament. These are known as urchin barrens, and as urchins lost their main predator, their populations increased. These barrens reduce biodiversity and impact coastal fishing economies, and have been persisting for over a decade. Resilient marine ecosystems are under pressure to adapt to these drastic changes in temperature and chemistry. In order for kelp to regrow, about 1 to 2 urchins per square meter is ideal, but this estimates to hundreds of thousands to millions of urchins that need to be removed. For an urchin diver, these urchin barrens may seem like they've struck gold, but because of the lack of kelp, this impacts the marketable roe, also known as the uni inside, for not only these purple urchins, but the typical target species, which are the red urchins, for urchin divers. Urchin removal, as you can imagine, is not an easy task. They're sharp and they're underwater, and if you've ever been to Fort Bragg and been remotely near the water, it's very cold. So it requires intense labor, weather cooperation, and specialized dive equipment. Therefore, recruiting professional commercial urchin divers is highly favorable. Speaking with commercial urchin divers in Mendocino, currently focusing on these purple restoration efforts, they emphasize that the current limitation is not the number of divers, but a consistent funding source to incentivize removal. There's an ongoing conversation of the demand for a circular restoration model. The combination of waste from commercial fisheries, typically targeting those red urchins, and purple urchin removal waste, generates large quantities of waste, hence the potent smell of the Noyo Harbor. But this waste shows strong valorization potential across various industries. Finding market-based solutions to use this waste and repurpose it may grant a restoration model. This interdisciplinary approach highlights circular solutions, which is a critical pivot from our previously linear model of waste. This gap inspired me to create Urchinloop, a digital marketing platform that highlights the circular economic framework to incentivize further removal, synthesize global urchin valorization research, and expand the reach of the spiny predicament story. This platform can also build a larger network to connect people and audiences working with sea urchins or inspired by sea urchin waste. These conversations with commercial urchin divers inspired the platform design based on 3 pillars of the circular economic framework: remove, repurpose, and restore. Each pillar includes its own interactive landing page that brings the user through the model, focusing on current efforts, opportunities to volunteer, and global research that can inspire local solutions. A colleague and I were recently talking about urchins, probably to no one's surprise, and they were talking about how they often went to the tuna dockside market and bought fresh urchins. And I was always curious about the excess waste in the form of spines and shells, because the uni itself is less than 10% of the whole body of the urchin. I referred them to Urchinloop to explore these avenues. They browsed through the 3 general avenues: agriculture, human health, and creative options, distilling from distilled scientific papers to direct company links. Urchin barrens are symptoms of ecosystem imbalance and are seen globally, varying in urchin species. Other countries, such as Australia and Norway, have extensive circular economic framework to mitigate this waste through agriculture. In terms of human health, these pigments are already on the market in Russia and have proven medicinal value. Therefore, California could use this as potential framework of health and wellness industries. Additionally, the rich purple color of these pigments inspires so many different creative options that businesses are already using. My colleague was surprised about all these different avenues of using sea urchin waste, as was I. But these are the reactions that Urchinloop aims to foster. Finally, the Restore page then closes the loop, providing actionable steps. My colleague was not a diver, so they chose to explore consumer-based solutions by supporting these California-based companies working with sea urchin waste. Whether you're a diver, conservationist, entrepreneur, scientist, or consumer, Urchinloop provides these wide ranges of solutions and actionable steps. As I continued developing Urchinloop, I was so inspired by not only these businesses, but the creative minds here at Scripps. So I decided to experiment with urchin waste of my own. If you told me a year ago I'd be taking a ceramics class for graduate school, I definitely wouldn't believe you, but here I am, creating mugs and cups and these bowls made from dried and crushed sea urchin wedged into clay. Art has such a unique ability to move people across backgrounds and disciplines. Leaning into creative approaches, using art as a marine conservation tool to start conversations that statistics alone sometimes can't. Appreciation and action go hand in hand. So leveraging this art to have a new source of appreciation for these underwater forests that most people aren't in the water seeing every single day. This accessible science communication tool is a unique marketing strategy that I used for Urchinloop to increase education and reach of this spiny predicament story that needs to be told. In May, I hosted a booth at Forum's Art Market in Pacific Beach, and participants used their own creativity and used urchin-infused clay to create their own creations. As they molded their clay, we had meaningful conversations about kelp restoration, urchin barrens, many of whom had no prior knowledge of the extent of kelp loss in California. Over 25 urchin pinch trays were created, but the impact of this art extends further than holding jewelry or coins. This art facilitates discussion of kelp forests, discussion of waste reduction, and discussion of creative marine conservation. Though ceramics may not be a currently scalable solution, at least for me, there's a rise of California-based businesses that are looking to make this market-based incentive to continue removal. Unique avenues such as Sealy Studio creating urchin dye kits from pigments, or beautiful tiles made from marblists but for home architecture. They look to support direct funding of these urchin divers, taking initial steps towards a circular restoration model. Urchin products may provide a successful framework to grant our underwater forests the support they need to regain their resilience. Our rapidly changing climate requires unique solutions and creative marine conservation. This project would not have been possible without the support and guidance of my capstone advisory committee, Dr. Paul Jensen, Dr. Christine Eric, and Josie Kletter. I also wanted to thank the businesses and organizations that were willing to collaborate along the process and were so helpful, and the thorough phycology course taught by Dr. Jennifer Smith that inspired this creative ability of urchin waste and kelp restoration. Also, the Urchinloop event would not have been possible without, and free and accessible, as I imagine, to the public without the support of the Julia R. Brown Grant funding. To access the full site, visit urchinloop.com, or you can scan the QR code shown here. So whether you're drinking your morning cup of coffee from an urchin mug, designing your bathroom with urchin tiles, or grabbing for your urchin-dyed beanie in the winter, supporting these companies can play a meaningful role in not only facilitating discussion of kelp restoration, but restoring them.
Thanks, Linnea. Such a cool project, really creative, and just great presentation as well. How will people find the website? How can you make sure that it is a website that gets used and seen by as many people as possible?
I'm so glad you asked. But yeah, I mean, making a website, there's so many websites out there, and just you want to get eyes on your website. You don't want to just, I made this and now no one's ever going to see it. So one of the partnerships that I made was with Above and Below, who has already launched, and this has been an extensive project, an ocean literacy campaign that raises awareness. And as of an hour ago, so you can't officially see it, we actually linked our website. So if you go to their website, which is called The Mysterious World of Bull Kelp, which has tons of information on bull kelp research and case studies all across California and north. So they do a beautiful job. So they also allowed me to, grabbed me in and extended their network to me. So it was a great opportunity to meet more businesses that are already working with urchin waste. And rather than me doing the same thing that them and having a lot of overlap, we were able to collaborate and make very different websites that have a connecting point. So you can find it here. I was crystal clear.
Hi, congratulations. That was a really interesting topic, and I don't know if this is really a question. I guess it is a question. Have you spoken to architects or designers? Because I feel like you were saying maybe ceramics doesn't have a big platform, but when I think about this and I think about architecture and design and designing buildings from scratch and really being sustainable, I see a lot of potential there. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I was definitely focusing on ceramics just because I didn't know much about ceramics. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for other creative options. I mean, Marvelous is making those tiles in home architecture, and they're beautiful. But I've also thought about maybe in roads or in all kinds of things. But I think buildings is also a really interesting point. There's just so many creative options for utilizing this urchin and really utilizing any waste. And I'm just always really excited about hearing more ideas. And you can add it to Urchinloop. There's also, I didn't add it, but there's a discussion section. So if you have an idea, including that in that collaborative approach, you can post it there and people can look at it.
Do you have any other ideas for expanding this platform? What does the future hold for Urchinloop?
It's a great question. I am going to go do a kelp restoration dive internship in Tasmania. So my next immediate step is kind of comparing what we're doing here in California based on all the research that I've done and comparing what they're doing in Tasmania for kelp restoration research. So hopefully, launching soon, there will be a little Tasmania portion of Urchinloop. But as of then, we'll see. Maybe I'll keep making urchin mugs.
Great. Thanks so much, Linnea.